people. We honor their contributions to our shared history and shared future as we celebrate June as National Caribbean American Heritage Month. Join us. Visit celebratejune.org.
You're live.
And we say hello, good evening, and welcome to the second in a series of, we'd like to call them wrap-up sessions of each day's activities as part of Caribbean American Legislative Week. Today, by the way, for what it's worth, is Windrush Day. And members of the Caribbean diaspora in the UK would have observed Windrush Day today. Another time we'll talk about that, but we're happy and anxious to get the show on the road, as they say, and we're anxious to hear about today's activities, what happened today. And of course, Madam President surrounds herself with wise people, and I'm seeing all those wise people right now. Dr. Claire Nelson, how are you?
I am good. We had a very rich day, a very stressful day, I might add.
Uh-oh.
Because we talked about some very tough topics. Mm-hmm. We talked about diplomacy and we talked about security. Right? Amala was there with me from the beginning to the end, through thick and thin. Yes, and so we have with us the two moderators of the marathons they did. Beginning in the morning, Wesley Curtin anchored our session in diplomacy from 9 o'clock until noon, and then in the afternoon from 1 to 5:30 almost. We had Herbert Nelson Jr., who is member for a working group. So Wesley Curtin chairs or co-chairs the working group on diplomacy, and he can tell you more about that, and then we can move from that to the afternoon session. So
yes, so let's get to it then, shall we?
Yes.
All right, so we are opening the curtains now to our first speaker, and that is Wesley Curtin. In the area of that's a corny one, isn't it? In the area in the area of it's good to see you. Thank you so much.
Same here. Thanks for having me.
Right. In Jamaica, we call on the ground, we would call diplomacy hypocrisy. Is it a necessary, I don't want to call it evil at all by any stretch of the imagination, but for those who don't think that's an authentic way, it's diplomacy, so you have to nice up things or package things in such a way, or is that being too simple?
Well, I think if you're looking at it from a humorous point of view, you can enjoy some humor by, describing it in several ways. They say a good diplomat is one who's paid to lie effectively for his country. So some people put it a little more diplomatically and say is one who is asked to be economical with the truth.
Ouch.
So there are all these definitions and characterizations of diplomacy and diplomats. But really and truly, I think diplomacy is really an effective tool for advancing discussions and recommendations and generating consensus on issues. So I think in looking at diplomacy and its achievements, I think it is necessary to look at the glass at the end of the day as half full rather than half empty. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's hard to measure the deliverables that come out of diplomacy because it's not so much what it might have achieved, but in terms of, physical and feel, in terms of what you can feel, but it is what it avoids happening It avoids conflict, heightened tensions, and even war in many cases. So, I think the whole question of diplomacy is critical for us in and from the Caribbean. I think for such as this one today are critical to our efforts to improve the quality of life of not only the people in the Caribbean, but even we here in the diaspora as well. I think today was brimful of healthy discussions and brimful of really, really good recommendations, which I think could form the basis for an agenda for prosperity over the next 3 to 5 years. If we nurture it carefully, if we don't bite more than we can chew, and we take it step by step, because sometimes I think we try to do too much too quickly. But I think if we, took some of those recommendations and dealt with them in a coordinated, unified way, particularly as they relate to us um, getting the United States to act in a way that is supportive of our objectives and mutual to mutual benefit, then I think our efforts would not have been in vain. For instance, I think today we got some good news from the guy from the State Department, Mr. Pedro Martin, the acting director of the Office on Caribbean Affairs at State, about the whole vaccine diplomacy process. I mean, he gave numbers about the number of vaccines that are going to be donated by the United States to Latin America and the Caribbean. He also advised that in addition to that, there were, I think he said, 55 million vaccines being separately allocated and donated to small island development states in the Caribbean and Asia and the Pacific.
Was there a timeline on all of that, or a sort of indication of what approach they would take, or diplomacy would not have allowed for that?
He didn't get into the logistics of it, if one can call it that, and timelines. But I understand from the CARICOM Secretariat, from a source, that there was a meeting last week between the White House and CARICOM. And what was being discussed was the whole question of logistics, how you're going to handle it. My understanding is that the US is going to pay the manufacturers for the vaccines, and the arrangements, the logistical arrangements in terms of how they are packaged, where they're sent to, how they're to be stored, how they're to be administered, and so on, would be a function of some kind of arrangement between the manufacturer and the CARICOM member states.
Good.
So, with a kind of a monitoring role for the US, just to make sure that the money is well spent in terms of the use of the vaccines, and that there isn't unnecessary wastage and spoilage and so on. So that's
encouraging news.
That is encouraging news. We also got a very interesting recommendation from Dr. Richard Van West Charles, former Minister of Health from Guyana. And he is saying that if the allocation to the CARICOM member states does not satisfy the need, the requirements, whether on the basis of economies of scale, whether then we can ask the US whether the Caribbean countries can pay for the additional vaccine that they might need, so as to benefit from a reduced price because of the volume that is being bought.
Oh.
So for instance, if they were giving 10 million vaccines to CARICOM, and the need is 15 million that we allow, that there would be a mechanism to allow for the purchase of that 5 additional million at prices that would have been at the cost that would have been for the purchase of the larger numbers, so that it makes it a little more affordable for the countries when it comes to vaccines. We also had from at the opening the ambassador of Haiti to the United States, and I think he really advocated that there be a new type of relationship, particularly with the new administration here in the United States. One based on mutual respect, but yet on the realization that we are in the same hemisphere. We share some of, while we share a lot of the values, we also share a lot of the problems, and that there should be more interaction and a more coordinated approach to the relationship for mutual benefit, but with the understanding that that they in the Caribbean member states, CARICOM member states, and even perhaps the wider Caribbean, see the US as a major partner in our development efforts, and we expect the US to enhance their contribution to that partnership, so as to ensure that we, continue to have a stable region, a peaceful region. Also, the opening remarks from Ambassador George Talbot of Guyana, the ambassador to CARICOM, was also quite instructive in that he touched on a number of areas, one of which was the whole question of debt, financial debt, and I think he basically in his menu of recommendations pointed to the fact that the strains brought on Caribbean economies, particularly in recent times by natural disasters, and more recently and currently by the corona pandemic, that there needed to be some serious concentration on not only debt relief, but or forgiveness, but also on the issue of structural contributions to structural arrangements that would help our ailing economies in the region, particularly those affected by whose tourism industries in particular have been affected. So, and I think in a nutshell, I don't know if Amal or anyone else, but I think for me, that would sum up the opening session this morning, which was basically devoted to reinvigorating, if one can call it that, the partnership between the Caribbean and the US.
Thank you very much. That was quite detailed. Allow me please to greet Dr. Amala Luncheon. Good to see you again. How are you?
I am well. I'm well this evening. Good to see you again.
Same here. And you seem to have a way in being able to get a sense of what would have happened in each of these sessions. Is it that you've had to attend every single one, or you've just been working smarter in making sure that you're able to gather information to be able to share in a session like this?
Well, actually, I did attend everything, and I was happy to do so. So Wesley spoke about the first panel, and the second one we spoke with the Director General of the OECS, Dr. Didicus Jules, And he spoke about wanting to reach out to the diaspora in terms of getting assistance for the OECS. So we were incredibly happy to hear that. And we're looking to partner with Dr. Jules. And then in the next session, which was still on the diplomacy, we were looking at the Caribbean, the possibility of looking at the Caribbean as a zone of peace. And, one of the suggestions that Dr. Nelson had coming out of that was sort of to broker for Venezuela a sort of peaceable future. So it would need to be something similar to, I would say, probably like the Marley standing in between two Jamaican politicians, kind of like that, but in a neutral place, to get Venezuela to come to terms with where they are now and how their instability affects the rest of the Caribbean. And Ambassador Vanessa Neumann from Venezuela, she was actually quite happy to hear, that we wanted to do that. Yes, Dr. Nelson.
Right. Sorry, you're saying, or that's it?
Dr. Nelson wanted to say something there.
Dr. Nelson?
Well, I was going to say, actually, could we just take a quick break and then bring in our person from security?
Sure.
America is a nation of immigrants, a melting pot of cultures, including Caribbean, which contribute to the bountiful diversity of American society, like Kamala Harris, Winston Duke, Jimmy Jean-Louis, Shirley Chisholm, Skip Marley, Joy Reid, Lenny Kravitz, and Anne-Marie Campbell. We honor their contributions to our shared history and shared future as we celebrate June as National Caribbean American Heritage Month. Join us. Visit celebratejune.org.
Yes, thank you. Welcome back. It's 16:45 past the hour, and we're here with our co-anchor or anchor extraordinaire, Dervin Malcolm, who is here to help us talk about what we did. I think, well, I don't know why he's muted, but maybe he needs to unmute him. Like, all right. So we're joined now by Herbert Nelson Jr. He claims he's my cousin. I'm not so sure about that. Does anybody see a resemblance? And so before we go on to Herb, who is the security czar here, yes, it was very interesting to consider the zone of peace concept. We had from Ambassador Antoine from Grenada. He was the former ambassador to the US. Then he became ambassador to the United Nations from Grenada. Then became Grenada ambassador to China. So now he's ambassador plenipotentiary. If you can say that word, please.
Plenipotentiary and extraordinary.
Thank you. And he seemed fired up about that. And another idea which I threw on the table to see if we would catch some interest was repurposing a cruise ship to do like an intra-regional cruise in perpetuity, just picking up 30 new people every place, and always 150 people from different islands. And every time we pick up 30 people, we let out 30 people, and we get to basically mix and mingle and get to know each other and build our inter-regional togetherness. So that was it for that. So, but Herb, I think he wants to know, let Dervin ask you what he wants to know about what happened in security.
Okay. Yes, that is always an appropriate, well, maybe not appropriate, but it's something is always happening in that area, and one wonders what drove the discussions in that session. Particular points of interest that you recall that you can share with us now.
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank the National Security Advisor of Guyana, the Republic of Guyana, Captain Jerry Govaya, who retired from the Guyanese Air Corps. He appeared and, he spoke like the champion of a country that is really rising. He was very firm in his belief that Guyana is about to move from a $4 billion to $30 billion economy, and that there would be jobs for quite a few thousands of our friends in the Caribbean. maybe even yourself and others, depending.
Ready when you are.
But it was interesting because I had no idea the length and breadth of the oil find and the projections that they had. But it will put Guyana firmly, I think, in the lead, because the Trinidadians appear to be stalling out. But the Guyana's economy would rise, and in turn, we would see an employment, I guess, in the immediate vicinity for Trinidad, because he says they're speaking to Trinidad about joint projects. Since Trinidad has the oil and gas, they now have oil and gas, so it makes sense. Um, we looked at the internally to see if there were any stress or strife internally, and he reassured us that there was nothing happening internally, and we didn't really see anything on the horizon either. Of course, what was left behind was the last elections, which it went on and on for longer than it should have. And what I had asked him, and he answered it quite professionally, was the fact that we had it impacts all elections in the Caribbean. And we mentioned Jamaica, and you looking down the road at St. Lucia. So much outside money, outside influence that comes into these elections. And in addition to that, it makes it harder when you have outsiders that appear to be influenced in the election one way or another.
And you're not referring by any means to members of the Caribbean diaspora, are you?
No, I'm not. I surely am not. We have some multinationals, as well as the countries they represent, that are like big brothers, and they come in to ensure that their futures are safeguarded. We understand that, and we understand they're going to get involved. I spoke to him specifically about the British military and British intelligence in the community in Guyana and in other parts of the Caribbean. And they were promoting the idea of U.S. military installation in Guyana. And I said to him that something like that could spark conflict between Venezuela and Guyana. And of course, what he relayed was the fact that the Venezuelans are bringing in the Iranians. Now, if you know anything about Iranians, the Quds forces are the special forces. And these guys train the best terrorists in the world. And some of the terrorists that they have trained live right there in Margarita Island in Venezuela, off the coast of Venezuela. So you have to look at, with daily flights every day back and forth to Iran, and also bringing in advisors, as you could put it, the Chinese and the Russians are already there, then Venezuela has much to be feared because they're doing overflights and other things with their fighter jets.
Sounds like all of this needs to be in a situation room by itself.
Yep.
I'm seeing that we need to. My goodness, where has the time gone? That we're going to need to wrap shortly.
We just have 6 minutes left. So let me just say that session, the first session was on CBSI and corruption challenges.
Right.
And in the next session, they looked at the next session was on cybersecurity and
no. The next session itself was Rattigan, and we were looking at hotspots.
Oh, the hotspots, right?
So we were discussing the hotspots, which again was Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago, because 5 million people leave Venezuela. good majority of them have penetrated the Trinidadian economy
Mhm.
and other Caribbean islands like Guyana. And then after that, we went on to discuss Haiti at great length. And
Mhm.
Haiti being inundated by gangs, overrun by gangs. And gang rule is the order of the day in Haiti. And it points out a weak CARICOM where there are no methods or rules to CARICOM that brings in the strongest countries in order to enter Haiti and establish law and order. We don't have that, we have it in every other region of the world, but not in CARICOM.
But in the past, obviously UN and peacekeepers and all of that. But you're right. There's no
It doesn't work
such.
out very well.
Yeah.
The cybersecurity, we dealt with a new concept, a world cyber organization that can organize the whole world by quadrants and ensure that each quadrant comes up to a certain standard, a standard that allows nobody to be attacked or be penetrated, or for back doors to be created through the Caribbean into the US. So that was a cybersecurity, which I thought went over pretty well. And in the last session of the day happens to be the child human trafficking.
Human trafficking, yes.
That was very moving because I had no idea Jamaica had 5 different trafficking routes. I had no idea there was a slave market in Jamaica discovered in 2004 down in Westmoreland, right? So you were getting a lot of hard facts from people, right? As Dr. Mala and Dr. Nelson mentioned, these are hard facts that of things that have occurred in the Caribbean are occurring. And you saw a lot more routes, and the routes were also consolidated with same people who were trafficking arms and drugs.
Yes.
So
I think it was interesting for me to hear that there were 342 routes for human trafficking in the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean, yeah.
That sounds rather porous, rather porous. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, it is. And the fact is, it's only, I've been addressing this in Jamaica since 2017. It was only, I think, late 2019 that I actually heard the Parliament speak more to it. Although Superintendent Berry, who came on and spoke, says he's been working human trafficking for 20 years. But you would know it because we weren't getting the results.
Right.
So, human trafficking, a lot of your traffickers, arms and drugs, are now switching from arms and drugs to people. You don't get caught with either one of those two. You can lie your way out with humans around you, right? But you can't lie your way out when you get caught with drugs or with weapons on you.
Yes. So then, thank you very much, Herbert Nelson. Dr. Nelson, let's put a cap on it. We're just about a minute.
Well, just to say that, all of this can be heard in much more detail if people go to their us on Facebook. We have detailed information available, and so all this was taped and is available for replay and replay. We want people to share with their friends, and just an overview again to have people know this is really going on very well. Tomorrow we'll deal with education and health. We have a great lineup on Friday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Thursday we have energy, and we begin our prosperity agenda. And really, I really hope that people get a sense of what it means when we talk about diaspora advocacy as a result of these conversations with you. I know a lot of people know you, and it's one of the reasons why we wanted to reach out to you, because you have such a great following in the Jamaican diaspora, that you yourself have a better sense of what we're doing. When you're talking to me one-on-one on those mornings when you call from Jamaica and I'm in Washington, now you have a sense of what it is we're actually doing. You have a better sense of what we're doing. So I'm really excited about what we're doing. I want to just give a big shout out again to Wesley Curtin, Herbert Nelson for anchoring today's session. Dr. Marley is my sidekick in the chair, making sure people are in and out of the rooms and all that jazz. And, Devin, I hope you can make it back tomorrow because we need you.
All right. We look forward to that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. All the best.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.
America is a nation of immigrants, a melting pot of cultures, including Caribbean, which contribute to the bountiful diversity of American society, like Kamala Harris, Winston Duke, Jimmy Jean-Louis, Shirley Chisholm, Skip Marley, Joy Reid, Lenny Kravitz, and Anne-Marie Campbell. We honor their contributions to our shared history and shared future as we celebrate June as National Caribbean American Heritage Month. Join us. Visit celebratejune.org.